Alright guys, it's another day. Now today we'll be looking at lecture 1 on exam trig, and lecture 1 on exam trig is specifically on trigonometric identities. So now we can look at how can I really derive the 4 trig identities, and that is how can I really derive them. Now let's look at something here. Now this is what we already know. Now the trig identities, now we have some trig identities from like the previous video I did. We did some things on it. Now some trig identities, now like something like this, we have let's say we have a tan. Let's say we have tan. What is tan? Tan is what? Sine over what? Cos. That is what gives us what? Tan. So when we talk about tan inverse, that is tan inverse, we call it what? Cot. So inverse of cot, now what are we going to get is, instead of sine over cos, we're not going to have what? Cos over what? Sine. That shows that it's inverse of sine of tan now, right? So we know that something like this, we have like this cosec we've been talking about. Cosec is inverse of what? Sine. Inverse of sine is cosec, while inverse of cos, let's say inverse of cos, that is sec. Sec is equal to what? 1 over what? Cos. So this is what we have. Now let's go right into it on how to find the trig identities. Now let me have a triangle here. I have a triangle at this side. Okay, let's have a triangle here. All right, now let's have a triangle here. Now this, let's have a triangle like this on this side. Okay, and in this triangle we have here to be what? A. Here is B, and then this other side is what? C. Now this is the angle 90 here, and then let's say this side should be angle what? Theta, right? So this triangle now, the opposite side to this A now is this side, that is small a, while here should be what? Small b, and there C is what? Small c. Now by Pythagoras theorem, let's go by pi, let's call it pi. It said that the square of the hypotenuse side, that is the square of the c side now, is equal to the sum of the squares of the two opposite sides. That is same as saying what? A squared plus what? B squared should be able to give us what? C squared. So this is number 1 trig identity that most of us don't know, but this is number 1 trig identity. Then let's go to how to find number 2 trig identity. Let's solve it here. Number 2 now. Let's have it here. The second one is when we have a squared, that is from the Pythagoras theorem, b squared minus what? C squared. Now it's equal to, C squared. So what we'll do now is what? Divide. We're going to divide through. Let's divide through by what? C squared. Now let's divide through by c squared. Now if we divide this by c squared, divide this by what? C squared, divide this other one by c squared. Now what we have here is that what? 6 squared cancels c squared. Now let's have it here. If c squared cancels c squared, that is what? 1 on this side. So this other side will have it where this now b all over what? C all squared, right? And here is now plus. Sorry, I'm writing from the reverse, right? This is now a all over what? C all what? Squared. Now let's look at this. Let's look at something here. Now to get this, now let's have this now. A all over what? C. But then we cannot get the accurate thing that we're looking for except we go by the sine, cos, and tan. Now look at what we got. Before we simplify this further, let's do this on this side. Now let's have this sine. Sine theta from this triangle. Sine is what? Sine, that is so. Opposite of a hypotenuse, that is what? B over what? C. While cos theta from this side, cos theta is what? Car adjacent of a hypotenuse, that is what? A all over C. And then tan theta from this side, that is 2 opposite of adjacent, that is B over what? C over A, So now from this side, let's look at this. This one we have here, this A over C, we look for it in this side. We saw A over C is here, that is what? Cos theta. Now we have this we what? Cos square what? Theta. Remember that it's carrying square up here. So this is cos square theta plus what? Now this is B over C. Now let's look for B over C here. Now B over C is sine. Now this is what? Sine what? Square theta. Cos square theta plus sine square theta is now going to give us what? 1. So this is the number 2 trig identity. That is the number 2. So let's go up to finding the number 3 also, the third trig identity. Now let's say divide through the third one. Let's divide through Remember the first one, we divide through by c squared. Now we're going to divide through, let's say, by a squared, right? So this now, let's say this a squared all over what? A squared plus what? B squared all over a squared is now equal to what? C squared all over what? A squared. So we're looking for the third trig identity. Now let's go down a little bit. Now here, now let's have this a squared over a squared. Now this a here cancel a and leaves us with what? Just what? 1 plus, right? So now this now b over c over a. This is now b all over what? A all what? Squared. Is now equal to what? C all over a all what? Squared. Now this is what we got. So from here, let's simplify this further at this side. Now this is same as what? 1 plus. Now what is b over a? B over a from here now, b over a is tan. So we have this word tan is equal to what? Now c over a is what? This is a tan square. So this is tan square theta, right? So this is now c over a. C over a here is now, if you look at this, c over a. C over a is same as what? Now let's work something out again on this other side here. Now let's work something on this other side. Now still on this particular side here. Now let's look for the inverse. Inverse of what? Sine now. According to that, it's supposed to be what? C over b, right? That is, instead of b over c, now it's c over b. And inverse of sine, we call it what? Cosec. Don't forget. And then on this side, let's look for the inverse. Let's call it inv. Inverse of what? Cos. Inverse of cos, instead of a over c, now becomes what? C over what? A. And we call it what? Sec. Then the last one is what? Let's look for the inverse of what? Tan. Inverse of tan, instead of b over a, now is a over what? B. And inverse of tan, we call it what? Cot. So now this is what we're going to also make use of it. Now let's come down here again. Now we have this side, okay? We're talking about this side, this other side, that is c over a, then square. Now let's look for c over a. C over a appears here. This is c over a. So now it's under what? This is now sec. So this is what? Sec square what? Theta. So this is more like saying 1 plus tan square theta is equal to what? Sec square theta. And this is what? The third trigonometric what? Identity. Hope you are following this up. Now let's go to how to find the last trigonometric identity. That is the fourth one. Now the fourth one, now we go by divide. Let's say divide through by the last alphabet we have there. By what? Now let's look for it. Now the first one we divide through by, let's go down here. We divided through by c the first time. The second time we divided through by what? A squared, right? So this time around we're going to divide through by what? B squared. So let's divide through by b squared. Now what are we going to get? We have this to be what? A squared now all over what? B squared is now equal to, is not, okay, sorry, this is not equal to a squared over b squared plus b squared over what? B squared is now equal to c squared over what? B squared, right? So now let's simplify this. Now a squared over b squared, we know that's supposed to be, that is a over b, right? All what? Squared plus, so this is plus, now the next thing we have here is what? B squared cancel b squared, and this is what? 1, and this is now equal to c all over b, then all what? Squared. So we work this out again. Now let's consider this one here. Now a over b, let's simplify it by this side here. So now from here we notice that if we look up there, now we notice that this a over a all over b here. Now over here, now notice that instead of what? Instead of a over b is now what? B over a. That is what? Now here we'll have it to be what? A over b, and a over b is what? Inverse of what? Tan. That is what? Cot. So this is what? Cot square theta plus what? 1 is now equal to what? Now let's look for this other one. This is now c over b. C over b now. Let's look for c over b. This c over b is here. Is now inverse of what? Sine. And inverse of sine is what? Cosec. Now this is what we have here. Cosec square what? Theta. So this is exactly what we have. And this becomes the what? The fourth what? Trig identity. Thanks for watching this video. This is on math trick. So do well to follow us on this our channel, on this our link here. So this is a playlist. Just do well to watch more of our videos on this playlist. Thanks for watching. Do well to subscribe. Thank you.